Yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, That Weeb here, back with part 3 for What If Asta Was in Fairytail. If you guys want more of these kind of videos and want more videos of Fairytail what ifs, as well as Black Clover what ifs, which I'll be doing in the future, make sure to hit the like button so I know. Also, subscribe to my channel. We are almost at 4,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for that, by the way. We're almost there. We are about almost halfway to our goal for the year, so thanks for that. Hope everyone's staying safe out there. Even though everyone's staying inside, hope you can enjoy stuff like this and keep watching anime and having a good time. But anyways, let's get right to the meat and potatoes. I hope you guys like the video, and I hope you guys like this part for What If Asta Was in Fairytail. Asta, Gray, and Natsu look up as they see Erza having now walked into the guild hall with a large horn held over her shoulder. As Erza walks into the guild hall, many of the other guild wizards in Fairytail look over to see what the big commotion is about before turning away so they don't inherit her wrath. As Makarov comes out, along with Mira Jane, they would see Erza as she walks over to the countertop, with Gray, Natsu, and Asta all beginning to fight again as her view of them is out of reach. Makarov and Mira Jane would then come around the corner as Erza sets down her large horn, making the entire guild hall shake. As Erza walks over to the counter to talk to Mira Jane and Makarov, Asta, Natsu, and Gray would look at each other with a look of worry, as Erza usually doesn't stick around in the guild hall longer than just to grab the next job. As soon as they look up, however, Erza would then be walking over towards them. The trio would begin to sweat buckets as they look up to see her standing over them. Erza would then say that she needs them to help her with a job. They'd be confused as Asta would never have ever gone on a job with Erza before, as well as Natsu and Gray never being on the same team before, much less go on a job. Lucy would also be invited, as she was instructed by Makarov to tag along on their quest, so that way Erza and Gray, Natsu, and Asta get along. As Lucy is forced to come with, she says goodbye to her new friend Levy, who she met at the guild, as she gets out of the guild hall along with the rest of their new team. As Fairytail's strongest team makes it over to the train station, Natsu decides he's going to walk as he begins walking the other direction, before Erza grabs him by the scarf and pulls him back onto the train. Asta is looking as he begins to laugh, as Natsu is about to feel like he's about to puke his guts out. Erza would then punch Natsu in the guts so he gets knocked out, as he then lays down on her lap while she then holds his head down, so that way he's not feeling like sick the entire time. As Gray and Asta are sitting there, Lucy would ask if that's normal. They both nod, saying that Natsu was always getting sick from motion sickness from vehicles. As they're sitting on the train, the now trio of Lucy, Asta, and Gray would ask Erza what the actual job was about now that they're on their way to it. She would then say that on her travels, on her way back to the guild, she had heard about the Dark Guild Eisenwald having taken an interest in a certain object known as Lullaby. They would all be curious about this, as Erza says she has no more information other than that. However, it must be bad, as if Eisenwald is after it, then there's got to be something that they're going for other than trouble. As Erza says this, the train begins to move, as they're getting towards the Kingdom of Clover, where all the official guild masters are meeting up for their annual meeting. As they get to the grand train station line along the grand track they were on, Erza and everyone else would get off with, and just like the original, they would forget Natsu on the train. As they remember that Natsu was on the train, Happy would turn around, suddenly realizing he forgot his best friend, as he tries to fly back onto the train. As the train begins to move, Natsu would wake up from being knocked out as he sits up, feeling sick as he looks over. He would then see one of the wizards from Eisenwald, who would recognize him as a Fairytail wizard. This kid is what the Eisenwald wizard would be thinking. He would then see that Natsu can barely stand on the train, much less alone fight him. He would then toy with Natsu, as Natsu tries to throw a fire dragon iron fist at him. He would easily dodge out of the way of this as he kicks Natsu upwards, Natsu getting smashed out of the side of the train, as Happy catches him along with Erza, Lucy, and Gray in the Magic Mobile. As the train continues going along, he would then say that guy was holding a weird flute, and he claimed to be part of the Eisenwald Guild. Erza would then hit him on the head for telling him to be so stupid to let him go, as Natsu would then say sorry. They would begin cruising along the side of the tracks as they keep heading towards the area that they need to be. Eventually, the train would stop when they suddenly realize that it stopped in a large station. As they get towards the station, they see police surrounding the entire area, saying that there's dark wizards inside from the Dark Guild Eisenwald. Erza would say that they're from Fairytail and they need to get inside in order to deal with the situation. The police officers would open their way up as they allow Erza, Natsu, Gray, Asta, and Lucy inside. As they walk inside, they would see many Dark Guild wizards simply waiting around as if though they were waiting for them. Erza would then equip into her Heaven's Wheel armor, as she then turns around, telling Asta to help her hear of Lucy, while Gray and Natsu would go after the guy who had the flute. Gray runs to the left hallway while Natsu runs to the right. As she then asks Asta if he's ready for a fight, Asta would nod as he smiles, saying he's ready for anything. Lucy would quickly summon Tauros, who goes diving into the fray, using his axe to slice up and get into the action with some other of the wizards. Natsu would then be running down the hallway as you see a dark shadow creeping along it. On the other hand, Gray would also see something, as he believes that one of the person might be in the tower that has the radio control over the entire city. As they continue to run, this is when we now switch back to Asta, Lucy, and Erza's perspective. Asta charges anti-magical energy into his right hand, where the symbol of the black clover begins to grow. He suddenly sees the hilt of his sword as he grabs and pulls the entire large object out, the Demon Dweller's sword. As he pulls this demon sword out, Erza is impressed with seeing its size as well as its composition of dark metal. She's never seen a sword like it before, in fact. This is when she's even more surprised when suddenly a blast of magical power is shot towards Asta. As Asta holds up his sword, he reflects the attack as it goes blasting back towards the caster who shot it. The caster is then hit by his own magical attack as he's passed out. Asta then says he's ready to kick some wizard butt as he goes flying into the battle, swinging his sword as hard as he can, and dodging, cutting, and destroying any magical attacks that might hit it. Erza is impressed with seeing that this sword has the power of anti-magical properties, and she decides she'll have to work with Asta on training him how to use it better later. As Asta is going through town to tell everyone there, he then uses a move he just came up with, Black Hurricane. As he says this, he then begins to spin even faster, with the sword out similar to what you could imagine from the original Black Clover, as a storm of black turns into a tornado, which would swallow up another 10 members of the Eisenwald Guild. Now that they've defeated all of the guild members sitting in the main hallway, Erza, Lucy, and Asta would all split up to go find Natsu and Gray. Erza would go after Gray while Lucy and Asta were sent to go after Natsu. As Asta and Lucy get down the hallway, they would see that now Natsu's got himself in a pickle, as he had just fought that other wizard from before from Eisenwald, who had gotten the jump on him using his magic from behind. As Natsu is sitting in the wall, Asta would come up from behind the wizard, now trying to finish Natsu off, as he slices at the target. However, the guild wizard from Eisenwald would have seen this coming, as he dodges to the right, just as Natsu fires a fire dragon roar, directly where Asta is now. Asta would quickly hold up the sword as he reflects the attack, and then sends it reflecting back into the Eisenwald wizard from behind, who is surprised that he can actually do this. As he's now burnt to a crisp from the combined attack that Asta and Natsu just did, Natsu would say that was awesome, as he gives Asta a high five. Asta would say thanks, as he's blushing a little as he holds his hand behind his head. As they then look down, the wizard who has now been caught doesn't seem to have Lullaby anymore. As he would then say that Erigor has actually taken the flute and is heading towards Clover right this minute to go and kill the guild masters. Erza and Gray would come running around the corner, as they would then see that Lucy, Asta, and Natsu had successfully interrogated the wizard, who was now in critical condition from the attack. They decide to take him with them, as they don't want any problems to happen. Just as they go to walk out of the top of the roof to get down, they would then see that there's a wall of wind surrounding the entire station. This is when the wizard would say that Erigor has used a barrier of wind, and it's impossible to get out of. Erza would take her hand as she touches the wind wall, immediately feeling an immense pressure as she pulls it back immediately. She would tell them that there's no way that they can get through this without having to use brute force, that is. As Asta then looks over to Natsu, who uses a fire dragon roar on the wind attack, being blown away easily. Gray would try using his ice magic on the wind, as nothing occurs with him using an ice make lance. Asta would say that it's his turn to give it a try, as he pulls his black blade out of his hand and slices through the wind wall with one mighty cut. As he slashes upwards, the guild wizards from Eisenwald is amazed, as suddenly a large cut in the wind wall appears, shattering the spell to pieces. Asta would then put his blade away, as both Gray and Natsu are immensely impressed with him, not realizing that Asta actually had that much potential. They would give him a pat on the back as they say, "Good job, old buddy," as Asta laughed, asking if they ever doubted him, with Gray thinking that he did a little bit, with also Natsu thinking that, before they look back, saying they never did. Now, Erza, Lucy, and the rest of them would walk out and get into the magic mobile as they continue to drive along the tracks. Natsu would go ahead, with taking Happy on his back as he flies at Mach speed forward on the tracks, telling them that they should catch up to him any minute or two. As he gets forward, he would then see Erigor flying using his wind magic, as he then sees his Reaper Death Scythe that he had. He would come in with a Fire Dragon Iron Fist, slamming down directly on top of Erigor's back, sending him into the ground. As he stands on top of the train tracks, the two now fighting, they would then hear the Magic Mobile coming up from a few miles behind. Erigor decides he has to make this quick as he uses a wind barrage, slicing wind slashes towards Natsu. As Natsu covers his body with heat, he would deflect them by using his own attacks. As he then sees that Erigor puts a wall of wind around him to block from the fire and flames that Natsu is shooting towards him. He would then power flames into the back of his elbow as he smashes his fists into Erigor through the wind wall, as Erigor goes sent sprawling back onto the train tracks. This is when Erigor says, "Got you," as he uses his scythe, which is now wrapped under Natsu's foot, and throws him off the side of the bridge into the clouds below. This is when Natsu remembers what Macau had said to him before, as he thinks about how flames can do other stuff besides burn things. Suddenly his fire would go raging up as he grabs the side of the bridge and pulls himself upwards, as Erigor is impressed and also surprised that he could actually do this, with Happy cheering. As he suddenly comes flying up, he uses a Fire Dragon wing attack, as he then slams into Erigor, cutting him with both sides of his flames. Erigor is sent sprawling backwards, as the flute now falls out of his hands, and Natsu thinks he has the victory. Just as this happens, then, suddenly the Magic Mobile would pull up, along with the rest of the Fairytail wizards, along with that one wizard from Eisenwald. He would quickly jump out of the car, thinking that it was dumb for them to bring him with, as he thinks that they might have saved his life, but still. He then rushes over as now Natsu is completely out of energy, as he grabs the lullaby flute and then uses his magic to escape using his shadows. All of the now Fairytail wizards would be pretty pissed off that they had taken him with, and were now regretting it immensely. They decide they have to hurry as they need to get to Clover before he can use the lullaby flute. As they hurry on their way to get over to the Clover area, as they finally get to the city itself, they would then see that Makarov was talking to this Eisenwald wizard. As the Eisenwald wizard drops the flute, not wanting to kill the old man, realizing about what he was doing was wrong, the flute would suddenly take over with its own will and begin to transform into that giant wooden monster. This is when everyone would be given their chance to shine, as Erza would equip into her Flame Empress armor, blasting off a volley of flame. Asta would then jump in as he activates his sword and slices at one of its legs, cutting through it like butter. This is when Gray and Natsu don't want to be outdone and use their own attacks, as Gray shoots an ice make lance towards it, pelting it with ice. As then Natsu comes in with a Fire Dragon roar, belching this flame towards it as it covers its entire right arm, it now beginning to burn. The guild wizards begin to slash with all of their attacks, as Asta comes in on its other leg and slices, cutting its foot off as it begins to fall. Erza would then use a Heaven's Wheel as she begins to shoot her swords and blades towards with her petal dance. As then, now, we have Gray using his own attack, Ice Make Hammer. He drops a large hammer made of ice on top of its head as it goes smashing into the ground. Then they would have a combined unison raid finish, with them all using their attacks as they create a large whirlwind, with Erza using a Heaven's Wheel as it begins to spin, with Asta making a Fire Dragon roar, while then we have Gray making an Ice Make Geyser. Asta be in the center of this attack as he begins spinning as fast as a top, with his blade directly in front of him like a pinwheel. As he goes flying towards Lullaby, he would then say its time is up, as he slashes upwards with the attack, hitting it with all of their magic, as suddenly Lullaby is completely destroyed and turns back into a flute, before it cracks and is broken. The rest of the guildmasters would come out and say that they're very impressed with Fairytail for saving the day. Makara would be especially impressed. However, he would also be sweating as he feels his spirit leaving him after looking at all the damage to the countryside that they had caused. Everyone would laugh as now they decide it's time to head back to Fairytail. If you guys want to see the next part for What If Asta Was in Fairytail, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below your thought, and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys next time. Bye.